My first inoculation was Dr. King. And then that led me to Adam Powell and a lot of the people. But I was put off by Malcolm X.
Why?
Because what he was saying and the way he was saying it was too blunt. It was dangerous. And you didn't say those things in those days. I told you, we had been socialized as kids to get around wrong, not to confront it. And Malcolm spoke in very declarative terms, and he said some terrible things about white people that we thought, but you would never express it, you see. He talked about the way this country was not a democracy, but a hypocrisy, and he talked about what had been happening to us down south and up south. And he was not shy. He had and he was very, very intimidating. I'm man enough to admit it. There are a lot of people who are my age who will speak, you know, with love about Malcolm as though it had always been that way. But that's not so. He scared a lot of us to death. And then, mind you, I had this apartment, a bachelor apartment on Convent Avenue, and I'd been having a lot of fun, you know. And here he comes talking about a different way of life. First of all, he dropped his last name. Well, we had been socialized to take great pride in our last name. The more European it sounded, the better. There was not a flinch about, you know, noble. Oh, that's wonderful. If it wasn't French enough, you'd put an ETT on it, you know, to make it sound more French. And so here's a man who dropped his good last name and replaced it with an X. I thought the man was crazy. And then he talked about discipline. And he talked
self-discipline?
Self-discipline. He said that we do not believe in drinking. And at the time I would have a taste. And he said that we don't smoke cigarettes with or without a label on them. And I would smoke, you know, with a label.
Yes.
And he said, we don't eat pork. Well, you know, I love me some ribs. And then he said, we don't fornicate.
Yes.
And so psychologically, I said, Malcolm, I'll see you later.
Yes.
You know, and all. But what he was doing in deprecating whiteness, I came to understand later that he was rearranging the balance that we needed, because we had glorified whiteness and deprecated blackness. And so he was tilting, using exaggerated terms, to give us a sense of self and to take whites down a little as they needed to be. And the discipline that he was talking about were things that we really needed to address. But I couldn't swallow that at the time. So jumping forward in time, a lot of things happened in the struggle, and Malcolm was struck down in '65, and I never went to hear him speak. My only impression of Malcolm was on the sound bites on the evening news. And if there was a rally in Harlem, where I'm living now, I'm living in Harlem, and he would have a rally 10 blocks away, I would go in the other direction.
Did he have a mosque there?
He had a mosque on 116th Street, and I didn't live too far away from there. But I went out of my way to avoid this man because I thought he was wrong. I had a white friend who was going to...
Welcome to the Gilchrist experience. You just witnessed my hero broadcaster. This is why I sit here as I sit here today. Here's the reason why I do this. I mean, this gentleman was the premier innovator of black history. You're talking about black history, you look to Gil Noble for our history. He's the man who brought all the information to us. I mean, he brought Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Van Cernemer, all the major leaders. Gil had like it is. I mean, And he was the only black, grown black man that really fought for our rights. He was a serious man. And I played this to show you how we were exposed to Malcolm, what we were doing when Malcolm came around. Gil is, 10 years older than me. And we did 3 shows together. I had a role in a show I did with him. And this is my hero. I mean, like I say, this is why I do broadcasting, because I wanted to be like Gil Noble. Bringing information to our people. This is what he did for years. But I say all that to say, this is the way we saw Malcolm. I saw Malcolm the same way. That he was outlandish. I mean, what are you talking about? Stop eating pork? Stop playing with the girls? I mean, this is the 60s, and it was love fest. you couldn't help but love people.
You know, the 60s really got black people into a frame of mind which did not benefit us.
Mm-hmm.
We got away from our basic norms and traditions to join in with white America in the what was it called, the love generation, and a lot of that stuff. You had women's lib. All of these things helped to tear down the black family, helped to tear down business. You know, jumping in, what was it, Martin said, are we going into a burning house? Sort of, in some ways.
You see it from integration being a problem. I thought it was just the opposite. I thought they would find the love energy that we had, because they always admired us for being so loving, for all the, and we always had the songs, and we had the music. I mean, I always thought white people were jealous of that we had so much fun.
Yeah, but the
especially in the
integration,
60s.
that was
Integration,
about business.
Peg
That was
leg
about
bass,
making money.
what happened with Peg leg bass.
Happened with a lot of people.
With Peg leg bass, the other white corporations could afford to lower their prices to get the black people in, and that's what happened.
Yeah.
It was more expensive to go to Peg leg bass than it was the more modernized, white systems. That's why he went out of business.
But they could afford to lower, to put him out of business.
Yeah, exactly.
The same way Clinton dropped our rice price on the global market and bankrupted Haiti.
Yeah.
See, when companies they can take a hit for a short while at your expense, at my expense, because they know once we're gone, they can go back to business as usual.
Exactly.
And that's always the pattern.
That's what Trump is doing now. Well, what did you think of Gil Noble and his presentation of Malcolm, from what you know of Malcolm?
Well, I think that Gil Noble, as you said, at Black History Month, we must highlight Gil Noble, who led a life from 1932 to 2012, because he was the pioneer for African American journalism. He told our story. He used television to do that. There's so many people that preceded him, like the Gilchrist experience comes out of him, how you were inspired.
Right.
But he inspired so many people, and our hats go off to him, who continued to tell our story even when it wasn't wanting to be heard on WABC TV. Of course, I wasn't around during that time, but I could respect the fact that he told our history. And so as I was listening to him talk about Malcolm X, I know he talked about many different figures, from Dr. King to James Brown to Kwame Toure, but here he's talking about Malcolm X and his own feelings of Malcolm X. And as he began to talk about Malcolm X, I thought differently than you thought, in the sense of he talked about how Malcolm X was intimidating. And I found that to be kind of interesting, in the sense of, we know that Malcolm X didn't go up to anybody and say anything crazy. We know he didn't approach people. We know that he didn't beat people up on the street. We know that he did not start an insurrection in this country. We know that he was actually not violent at all, and that violence was done to him. So I wonder what was it about him that was so intimidating. And the only thing that he said that he really interacted with Malcolm X was his tapes that he would listen to him. And what I began to think about was Jesus, right? There were people who were assigned to arrest Jesus, and in the scriptures it said that they couldn't do it because they were scared of him because he was so intimidating when he spoke. And sometimes when you're speaking truth to power, it could intimidate those who are in positions to marginalize you. And I think that the story of Malcolm X can be looked at from many different perspectives. We could talk about how Malcolm X told people to, not eat swine and not have sex, and but I think that it was important that our communities had discipline, as we talked about the strength of the Nation of Islam, of how it created a structure within a system of America that it wasn't for us in the 60s. And they were able to have booming black businesses. They were able to build mosques throughout the United States. They were able to build schools where they taught black history. And even though I'm not Muslim, I could respect other religions in the sense of their goal of black progress. And, now that they're not around, there aren't too many institutions or organizations that have the networking, the sustainability, or the thought process of doing what the nation did, right? The nation knew it was important for brothers to get cleaned up, to get once they got out of prison, to give them structures. And, I think that even though Malcolm X had a strong, as you say, dietary discipline, the American diet is killing us. So we need to figure out something of where we do things and live differently. And maybe it doesn't have to be a radical change of calling yourself X and becoming Muslim, but we definitely need to think about how big business is treating us, especially when it comes to unregulated foods in the market.
Right.
Well, what you misunderstood is he was intimidating because he was saying stuff we all thought but didn't say. That was the whole premise. We know how to get around that kind of stuff because the white man was stupid to us. I mean, he thought that we couldn't do this, couldn't do that, and we proved everything he thought we couldn't do. We could do it better than he could.
Well, if we quote Malcolm X, he would say things. Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose? Who taught you to hate your hair? Who taught you and he said the white man is the greatest hate teacher on earth. And he would say
Willie
all these
Lynch.
things in his speeches. Huh?
That was the Willie Lynch syndrome. We still have that today.
And these teachings that Malcolm gave that we were all thinking that nobody said, sure was intimidating, but he just spoke the truth. And as you say, the grasshopper complex, we have to overcome. And it's not that we just have it just because we have it. We've been beat down for hundreds of years through so many systems of slavery that we have these grasshopper complexes, these inferiority complexes. So what Malcolm X was doing, because he grew up in white communities, he grew up in black communities, was to tell us there's nothing in us that is inferior. We can compete on any level, on any day, in any field. But I think that it's important because Malcolm X not only empowered us through our own history, he talked about our identities. He talked about how we created civilization. You have to understand, a lot of these teachings that they gave, which were based in truth and history, a lot of us never heard it before. And so for many,
how about the youth today? How about the youth today? They don't know any of this stuff. Half of them don't know Martin Luther King.
So what we know, I mean, I can't speak of yesterday, the 60s, as well as you guys can. But I know that just right now, Donald Trump has said that any school that teaches black history, it will be defunded.
That's it.
There has always been an intentional system at play to not tell the story of how this country was formed, the genocide that happened, the Middle Passage that brought people from the East to the West, that killed millions of people in that journey, and that even till today, there is a second-class citizenship. We still have slavery because we have this prison system. We have second-class citizenship, and that we're still not really getting the resources. We're talking about. I've heard you guys talk about segregation. The reality is we never really became truly integrated, what they did was they gave us another form of integration, which wasn't true integration. But now they're ripping back all the civil rights gains that we have in the '60s. So we have, I don't know if it's a greater fight, but we have a fight that's on our hands, that I don't know if I'm reading all of the things that Dr. King said and all the things that Malcolm said, will help us get through today. I think that we need to come together and figure out this plan, because they are looking to not only bring us back to a time before the 1960s, I believe they're trying to bring us back into the 1920s. So we need to figure out as a collective, what is our mode of attack? How are we going to bring our not just mouths together, but our finances together? And how do we sow into the next generation?
Yeah,
Right,
Ronald.
stand by. I'm going to run another item of the 60s. Run item 2. Now this is mid-60s with the Black Panthers. Now we're going to show you the warriors that we had previously, that we don't exist today.
As a people, we only can be held down for so long before we forced to take our rightful position in society. Just know, our current situation is not our destination. It's your boy Al Blaze, featuring Kendra Marie. What it do, baby? Come on, Black History Month. No, we gonna change that. We got Black History Year all year round, baby.
There's another one. There's another movement that accumulated a lot of wealth and a lot of organization, and then finally went under because of
FBI, J. Edgar Hoover, the attacks, the slaughter of George Hamilton, I can't remember his last name, was 19 years old when they gunned him down
Hammond?
at the Black Panther headquarters. J.
Fred
Edgar
Hampton.
Hoover.
Fred Hampton. Yep.
Fred Hampton.
Fred Hampton, thank you. J. Edgar Hoover was the biggest violator of federal law and constitutional law.
Oh, yeah.
They played a tape of a conversation he was having with Nixon back in the day, just a couple of days ago, and how they were conspiring over the phone to do some of the dirt they were doing.
Yeah.
The Black Panther Party is the reason why we have breakfast programs for children in school, to make sure that children have something to eat before they start their day. Realizing that there are children. When I was a board chair of a Head Start program in Bed-Stuy, we had children who were not being fed in the morning and whose parents were totally dysfunctional. So our social workers went into the home and saved some of these children who were eating moldy pizza because the mother was on drugs, the father was absent. So the Black Panthers showed the care and concern for little children. Jesus said, the least of these, you know, even with Malcolm, teaching people to think differently. Jesus said, as a man thinketh, so is he. We have to change our mind before we can change our habits. We have to change our thinking. You know, everybody's backed up from Trump. Truth is confrontational. The lie will run its course and people will believe the lie. But when truth steps forward, there's going to be a confrontation. My pastor always says that. It's confrontational. And we cannot sit idly as senators and congressmen and women fail to do their jobs. People need to speak up, and you see that, and I've been watching it on television these last couple of weeks, all the white people who were in the streets. You see, when black people had to march and demonstrate, it was cool. But now they realize that it's affecting them. It's impacting them. They're losing their jobs. They're losing their health benefits, all of these things. And now they're out there in the cold, literally and figuratively.
Trump voters.
So people need to understand that as a collective, don't get caught up in the white-black.
No.
We have to maintain
That's true.
a block of sensible thinking people, looking at reality and calling a lie a lie.
Yeah. Well, we have to look at past events and correct what errors were made then. I thought one of the biggest errors for the Black Panthers was going up to the state building with guns in front of, who was that? Who was governor at the time?
Was it
Reagan.
Reagan?
Reagan was governor at the time, 67, when they went up to the state building trying to show that they had, it was a law that you could bear arms.
Right.
So they went up to the Capitol with a bunch of guns, and that's when the crackers really got upset. That these black folks think they can bear arms in front of us in the Capitol, and they turned on all black people.
Well, you know,
And they made it hard for everybody. I mean, if you're black, you can't think that you can bear arms and flash and. I mean, serving the kids was great, but going up to the Capitol with guns, I mean.
The strategy may not have been the best strategy, you know, but
It was a dumb one. I mean, you don't challenge crackers like that.
Again, the notion that
What happened, though? As end result, they came after him. They gave him a reason to. And the last I saw of Huey Newton, he was high off coke on public television. Him and other guy was in, what was his name? Cleaver. What was his name? Cleaver?
boy, it's been so long.
See, they're
Angela
getting old.
Davis, Huey P. Newton, Eldridge Cleaver.
Eldridge Cleaver.
Eldridge
He
Cleaver.
had gone some country, and he was on the phone talking to Huey Newton. And Huey Newton was on prime time, high off coke, and everybody could see it. So instead of the Panthers taking money from the drug dealers and giving it to the community, they start doing drugs themselves. So, you know, the powers that be gets to the main players and turns them around. That's what happens in most of these organizations.
Well, that's COINTELPRO.
That's exactly
And we
right.
need to understand that
It happens to all of us.
you have to have a tight-knit group of people. And you can't let everybody into your agenda, into your program. The same problem
So what's happening today?
we had with our brother from Jamaica years ago. Oh, man.
Alton Maddox?
No. Going back, Marcus Garvey.
Marcus Garvey, oh. I know.
See, the feds had infiltrated his close associate who undermined him to bring down the organization. So anytime truth is speaking, the lie is going to do any and everything it needs to do in order to crush the truth. Malcolm, again, how we think determines our behavioral patterns. And if they can have us thinking the way they want us to think, then you're done. I used to tell, you come in my office, I had a sign, he who rules the head rules the body. So if I can outthink you, I can control your patterns of behavior, and down the road, I'll be waiting for you at a specific juncture. So if you came to my office, I let you know you weren't going home. You know, because I did my homework. You're here because I did my homework. So we really need to study. Gil did such a great job.
You had 20 years as a police officer. I mean,
Yeah, but it's,
you were the bully.
yeah, I was the bully. I was the bully
I can imagine you as a cop.
that saved some people from going to prison. And I was the bully that sent some people to prison.
Yeah.
But
you were a good cop.
we didn't do good cop, bad cop. We didn't do that. We just did our jobs, and it was about getting to the truth. It wasn't about the facts, it was the truth. And we had boys that were arrested for armed robbery, and we got them off as a result of our investigations, despite what the crooked complainants said, because people come in, all people like to lie, including judges in court. But going back to Gil gave us so much information.
Yeah.
And I loved him. I was so blessed to have done his show, and I did it with Cut 'em Loose Bruce, Judge Bruce Wright. We did a show together.
Another hero.
With Gil after Amadou was murdered. And D.A. Johnson wound up in the studio. We didn't know he was coming. And he was shocked to see us, and we were shocked to see him. But we did not do the same segments. But Gil brought so much information. Another one, on Fox TV, you had the O'Leary report. No, not O'Leary. McCrary, Bill McCrary.
Yeah.
Bill McCrary was the second one. You had,
Any sound familiar?
he wouldn't know Bill McCrary.
No, any sound familiar? What's your take on this? Let's bring the youth in.
I mean, well, I think
got
as we
40
talk
years
about
on this guy.
Gil Noble, as we can pay homage to him during this Black History Month, being a pioneer in journalism, I start to think about Joy Reid. She just lost her show.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah.
and
NBC is going
and
there.
how
Yeah.
they always attack Black journalists, especially when they're trying to constantly give disinformation. So if you're a Black journalist speaking truth to power on your show, there's a target on your back.
Yeah.
And there's so many great journalists that we've seen just not be able to sustain a career because we don't own the media companies. We don't own, we don't have enough Black radio talk. And so we have allowed for the white system and business owners to buy up all of the airwaves. And so there's not enough of our conversations going on. So that's why I'm so grateful for the Gilchrist experience of where we can have Black thought and Black conversations. But the reality of it is that our voices are marginalized and minimalized by the media. So we need to figure out how do we put our money together so that we can start buying networks, so that we can start having great journalism again, and so that we don't see journalists like the Gil Nobles of these days out of a job. I mean, as you guys were talking, I think there's an issue in our community with the purity exam, and I think that we need to throw away the purity exam. You got to be so perfect, and we're so quick to throw away our heroes. I mean, Huey P. Newton for me is a hero. Malcolm X is a hero, even though I have different philosophies, and I'm religiously, and I think because we're all on the same road trying to get towards liberation, I could respect that. I think that what the Black Panthers were put up against was an entire government, and I think that when you have a small organization trying to bring justice to an a community that's suffering injustices, you're up against the system. And if you're taking cocaine because you are so heartbroken, you know what? I get it. And so I think that we need to look at what happened. For instance, if we look at Edgar Hoover, the first person he took out was
Your video's out.
the first person that J. Edgar Hoover took out was Messiah Garvey. That was the first person that he went after, and Messiah Garvey was so big because he was national. We had never seen a figure nationally recognized right here through Harlem, and they did all kinds of things to him through through taxes, and then they used that same system, J. Edgar Hoover and his people, to then go after all the groups that preceded it, and we.
Your mic.
We lost you, Ron.
You're mute. You're mute.
Can you hear us, Ron?
Can you hear us?
You know, I was thinking of Melba Tolliver, the first black woman in New York on the news, and she wore an afro.
Yeah.
And they didn't like the idea that the sister came on not having her hair pressed, but had an afro. And she's somebody I'd like to really interview going back.
She changed things.
Yes, definitely.
Angela Davis. We all had afros back then, in the 70s. I had my affirmative action job in 1970. I had an afro.
But wait, you said affirmative action?
Yeah.
DEI?
No,
What?
it was affirmative action, not DEI.
Not DEI? Affirmative
not
action?
DEI.
The greatest
Affirmative
benefactors of
Brought
affirmative
in by a
action were
Republican,
white women.
Richard Nixon.
Yeah, and that benefited white women whose husbands were corporate heads who
But
set up
affirmative
companies
action
for
was
them.
strictly for blacks.
No, it wasn't. It came up
When
for
it
blacks.
came out originally.
And then you had
Well,
minorities
that's why
and
they
women,
hired me.
and they watered everything down. They didn't hire you because you were qualified?
No. I was qualified. I was the best salesman they ever hired. I proved
So you were
that.
qualified.
Well, it was that I was an ex-Marine. I
No,
was
you're
working
not
for a
doing
Southern
war.
company.
You're not doing war in advertising.
No, it was my personality that got me the job.
So you were qualified.
I was an ex-Marine. That's what crackers want.
Did the job application say wanted ex-Marine?
No, they wanted a salesman. I went in and tried to sell them computers.
Okay.
My interview, I tried to sell the guy a computer, just in case it didn't go well. I didn't know anything about the business. They wanted me to sell yarn, polyester, rayon, and nylon.
All right.
I went in for my interview, and I didn't know what it was all about. I sat down there, and they asked me what I did. I showed them the mini Sharp computer that I was selling on brokers down on Wall Street. And I almost sold them. But it was a fluke interview. I just went there for fun. And the agency that sent me was Winston Personnel.
Winston Personnel?
Winston Personnel.
But you're not the Winston. You're not the Winston.
I'm not the Winston. So it was a goof. It was right across the street from where Winston Personnel, on Fifth Avenue. I went in there on this, this interview, and Southerners. I was used to Southerners because I spent 4 years in the Corps with crackers. So I was used to crackers, and this is 1970. You know, Martin Luther King had just gotten killed in '68. Right. So Nixon came out with affirmative action, and I wouldn't apply for it because they had no black people. It was a Southern-based company out of Asheville, North Carolina. selling original polyester rayon and nylon. Originally a Dutch company, Axon, out of the Dutch, out of Holland. That was the main headquarters. And they had factories down in North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, in the mountains, where the water was good for the cleaning of the yarn. And they were salesmen, mostly Jewish people in the fabric industry. We sold fabric, thread to the fabric manufacturers. This was the basic yarn that goes into all fabrics. So we had the major industries selling. DuPont was our competition. Celanese was below us as far as volume's concerned. And they had these crackers come up there, and there were no New Yorkers in the sales department. So I was the only New Yorker and the only black. And they purposely put me in there because they wanted me to sell to the Jewish people. Because crackers still thought, I mean,
They
Southerners.
really didn't care for
they didn't-
Jews. Right.
Jewish people back in those days had horns for them. And they didn't like the religion. You know, the Jews killed Christ. You
Yeah,
know,
that nonsense. Yeah.
But these young guys, fresh out of college, didn't like dealing with the northern Jew. So they hired me as a black because they figure I get along well. And I brought in 2 huge accounts. A subcontractor that was, is he back? Is he still there? Is he on Zoom? And so they brought me in. All right. So they brought me in to deal with who the normal salesman didn't want to deal with. So I came in and sold yarn to a big subcontractor for Sears. He had 200 machines out in Patterson, what was it? Somewhere in New Jersey.
Patterson.
Patterson, or was it a little closer? And he had 200 machines, and he didn't have the credit from the big organizations. You know, they wouldn't sell to him. So I came on and brought him in, and he wound up buying 750,000 pounds.
Ooh.
I have a picture of, they made me salesman of the year. They had a factory had broken down, and they had all this odd yarn that they'd only go from the backing and double knit. This is polyester era, the 70s.
Double knit, yes, I
Double
remember
knit polyester. So all this equipment, all these, so I was a hero.
So in that case, you proved to be what they needed.
I was the best. They had me salesman of the year. We went to Bermuda that year for a sales meeting, and I was a hero. I was the big guy. So I was the black.
The country then, they realized that by hiring this one black guy, you were an enhancement to the corporation.
Oh, I sold the most yarn.
As the country should realize that black people are an enhancement. All the people in this country are an enhancement to the well-being of the country, and not just a select group that thinks they're smarter than everybody else. You know, when I went for my job with the transit police, you know, it was because of Adam Clayton Powell that I have a pension. So I took the test, I scored high. Matter of fact, they called me the next month. NYPD called me, and I took the transit police list. They took me off the top of the transit list. They told me I didn't want to work with them. But in my interview, my medical, the doctor is palpating me, says, "Oh, Mr. Weatherspoon, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to reject you." What? Yeah, you've got a heart murmur. No, I knew I didn't have a heart murmur. But the fact is, and we need to be aware, no matter what the law says, they're going to violate the law. So they don't want black people coming in. And I said, a heart murmur? He says, yeah. I was still running competitively. He didn't know that. So if I had had a heart murmur, I'd have been dead years before he could have seen me. So I said to him, I said, you're board certified, right? Yeah, of course. I said, so you then would know the difference between the diastolic and the systolic. He says to me, how do you know about that? You went to school, right? Yeah. I went to school. And then he just backed up. He said, well, go get your hearing checked. Don't worry about it. I said, well, wait a minute. Are you Oral Roberts? Am I healed suddenly? I thought I had a heart murmur. He says, no, don't worry about it. Go ahead. But these are the tricks that they'll use, and they've been using that trick right through the 80s up into the 2000s with black men, telling them they have a heart murmur. Oh yeah, you can take the test. We want to hire black people.
Yeah.
But when you get to the medical, boom, they're going to knock you out. Or the psychological, they're going to knock you out. We cannot live under the illusion that there is equality. There is no equality. We had a guy, Claude Barong, and I mentioned his name on air to anybody. 97% of the people who applied for the job with the transit police never got the job if they were black or Latino, because he didn't want any. So he was standing there, and they had to go back and pull all of his files and hire these people back and give them back pay.
I think if you're black, you go in, you do the best you can. I never had any restrictions as far as that's concerned. I always thought they were stupid. Because right when they told me I couldn't go anyplace, I get clean enough and presentable enough to go right in there. I mean, that real segregation back in the day. But New York was a little different than any place else. I'm sorry we lost Ron, but let's run item 3 and we'll come right back at you. Let's see if we can get Ron back. All right? Run item 3.
As a people,
Is that 3?
What is it about the Negro?
Yeah, this is good.
Every other group that
Oh,
came as an immigrant
1967.
somehow,
I thought you'd like that.
not easily, but somehow got around it. Is it just the fact that Negroes
Whole
are black?
interview is
White
the
America
full
must
28
see
minutes.
that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma. America freed the slaves in 1863 through the Emancipation Proclamation of Abraham Lincoln, but gave the slaves no land or nothing in reality, and as a matter of fact, to get started on. At the same time, America was giving away millions of acres of land in the West and the Midwest, which meant that there was a willingness to give the white peasants from Europe an economic base. And yet it refused to give its black peasants from Africa, who came here involuntarily in chains and had worked free for 244 years, any kind of economic base. And so emancipation for the Negro was really freedom to hunger. It was freedom to the winds and rains of heaven. It was freedom without food to eat or land to cultivate, and therefore it was freedom and famine at the same time. And when white Americans tell the Negro to lift himself by his own bootstraps, they don't look over the legacy of slavery and segregation. I believe we ought to do all we can and seek to lift ourselves by our own bootstraps, but it's a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. And many Negroes, by the thousands and millions, have been left bootless as a result of all of these years of oppression and as a result of a society that deliberately made his color a stigma and something worthless and degrading.
This is the part of Martin that people don't realize. This is 67, the same year he went against the Vietnam War. You know, you have to realize Martin's struggle started in 55. With Emmett Till and Rosa Parks that winter. Emmett Till was August 1st, 1955, and Rosa Parks started that December, I think it was December 55. So his accomplishment, he was 26 at the time, and he died at 39, so those years, this is coming up to a year before his death, 67. So here he's telling us how the peasants from England and all of Europe came here and received land free.
Right.
People, they didn't build America. They came and stole America.
They didn't work for
They
anything.
didn't work for anything. They worked for themselves. They worked and tilled the land because they were serfs back in the Irish in particular came over here in the 1820 famine. And the Italians were run out of Italy by
Well, you go back to the Irish. In the 1800s, the Irish were not even considered as white.
Mm-hmm.
When the Irish came here during the famine in the 1830s and 40s, they lived in Seneca Village with the black people because they were not white people.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny how people come here and they suddenly become white. The Italians, who are not even white, not in Italy, they're not white anywhere, they think they're white. So everybody, again, the thinking of the people, everybody wants to be a part of, but is willing to sell their soul to be a part of.
Mm-hmm.
And we see it today in government. People will sell themselves for anything. So, as you said, the Jews that came here wound up in Crow Hill in Brooklyn. And Brooklyn was not part of New York City. Brooklyn was a city of its own.
We're talking what year?
In the 1850s into the 1860s.
Okay.
So the Jews that came here, they had to live only in Crow Hill, which is called today Crown Heights. And that was a black neighborhood even then. And you went through East, all the way down Eastern Parkway, and then down into Ocean Hill, which was called Weeksville. There was a black man who bought large tracts of land, and they developed Weeksville, and there were businesses, homes, and everything. It was a black community in Brooklyn. So that's where the Jews had to live before they were considered white. So there's an illusion that people have in that being white is what we need to aspire to and what we need to be. But anything other than white,
Why is it as we as black people should listen closely to what Martin just said about how we always feel that we're less than this. I mean, because we don't teach our own history. Our own history is that we're the original people. You know, we go back to the Jeffries and the Serious Mystery, and I was just looking at that old clip we did. But we don't understand ourselves well enough. We have this Willie Lynch syndrome, you know, and today it's even worse.
you know, I
It's
grew up.
going backwards.
You grew up in Harlem. I grew up in East New York. And old East New York, when I was growing up, was predominantly white. Fortunoff was in the neighborhood. That's where Fortunoff started in East New York. A lot of the merchants who went on to build up Green Acres Mall, they were from East New York, along with Murder Incorporated, which is an old, Murder Incorporated, not the hip hop fake people. I'm talking the real Murder Incorporated. Incorporated came out of East New York. But the thing is that our schools were integrated in the 50s. There was no segregation. There was some racial, like there was one church that Italian people could not go into because they weren't white in the 50s.
In the 50s.
On Blake Avenue near Pennsylvania, St. John's Roman Catholic Church. But I had a friend, Stephen Silverman, a Jewish guy. We're in elementary school. He says, we're standing around, whatever, doing what we're doing. He says, I wish I was colored.
Yeah.
And we looked at him, what? Yeah, I wish I was colored. He says, I don't like being white. And this was a young kid in elementary school that wanted to be colored.
Yeah.
I had a friend, Gary Cam, a Jewish guy, and I think kindergarten or first grade, and I said to Gary, because you know, we're kids, we're not thinking on this level, but we're observing and we have a lot of questions. So I went to the bathroom, Gary went to the bathroom, and we're going back down the hall. I said, Gary, is your doo-doo brown? I'm a kid, what do I know? I'm like first grade. He says,
But that was what year?
That was like 55, 56.
Oh, okay.
But we're little kids, we're innocent. We're not caught up in race and everything. But he says, yeah, mine is brown too. So we're trying to figure out how can how can you have brown doo-doo, you know? But we got along. And because of my interactions with white people growing up, I wasn't amazed by them. I wasn't intimidated by them. Even going into the police department, dealing with Bratton and all these people, it was like, so what? I spoke very candidly and told them what I was and wasn't going to do. And at times I told them what they had to do.
Well, that's because you were in the North.
Well, that was East New York.
Yeah, that was
But
the
that's
North.
the way I was raised. So my mindset, I met smart black people. I met smart white people. I met dumb black people. I met dumb white people because I knew that it wasn't, nothing was across the board.
We always judge people by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin.
Right.
That's what you learn when you go. I mean, all you have to do is travel a little bit and you find that people are the same wherever you go on the planet. You
That's
just
right.
got to know how to deal with people.
Don't swallow the propaganda, you know, and it's
see,
important
that's-
that we travel. The travel
and
is
what you're
important.
taught that you are, that's another, thing. You're down south, and my father came up here hating white people, hating them like a passion, because he had bad experiences. And every time I got to hate anybody, God would put somebody, that kind of person, right in front of me.
The man in the mirror. you got to do a
I said,
self-examination.
no, I don't like those kind of people. Or so all of a sudden I meet somebody nice like that. That used to always happen to me. So I learned to stop judging people by what they look like. You have to wait till they speak and act the part. But that's what you learn as a human being. If you're stuck on what you think people are by just looking at them and figuring them out, you're lost. You don't have a God center. There's a God in everybody, hopefully. But we're going to try to find the God in Trump. Now, we just have to reform this man. He's sick in the head. He's delusional. There's no doubt about it. Now, this is one that the world has to work on this one. This is a world problem. Because this man is about to start World War III. He's backing the Russians, and that's so obvious. It's so obvious. This clown show we had last night is so upsetting to sane people. You can see this man is actually...
He's working for Russia. That's what he's doing.
I mean, he's Putin's bee. I said that
he's
in
working
2016.
For Russia. Ever
when
since
we
that
argued about
the beauty contest they had in Russia when he went over there years ago.
Oh, that's
I don't doubt that he was compromised then.
He was trying to set up he was trying to make a hotel, the Trump Towers in Moscow.
He'll do anything
in
for money.
2012.
Nikita Khrushchev said in 1958, we will take the United States without firing a shot. And if you go back and look at the quotations by Khrushchev, most prophetic, because he said, we will take it from the inside out.
Fault. It's our fault. I blame black people for Trump being in there.
You blame black people? There aren't enough black people to be the defining character for this man. Yes, black people voted for him. Black people did not vote.
Voting for Kamala.
And just the same.
Then we had an opportunity. We saw the writing on the wall. How many people just didn't pay attention to this 2025? I mean, we were talking about that for years.
More than the balloting, there were statements that Trump made. Don't worry about it. You're not going to have to vote again. Oh, we got this, that, and the other. There's a piece, I'm going to send it to you, a duty to inform.
We thought he was crazy.
It's an article by a guy that talks about how through this, through the computer systems and the machines we use, how it could have been tampered with. And look at Elon and all the people he's got in here. But I'm going to send that article to you. It's a technical piece, but the ballot is not secured in this country.
Look what he's doing. Look what Elon's doing.
Oh, we see what he's doing.
He's sabotaging the government.
And why are people walking away from their posts? What authority does Elon have to come to your office and say,
it's in the court.
You got to go?
It's in the court.
Instead of running him out the building.
You got your clock? You got 5 minutes.
Okay.
Well, I'm just saying this. We had an opportunity. Now, how do we get out of this? How do we get out of this? I keep saying that. How do we get out of it? We're going to have to find some love energy. Because that's the only thing that's going to get us out of this. Because I'm not going to go through this hateful thing. I can't go that route. I'm too old.
The
You know?
we have a Congress which is non-functional.
But how do
There
we
is a
get in the
midterm
front?
election which the Democratic Party is going to have to work ardently in terms of taking back the
But
districts.
that's too long. That's too far.
That's where it is.
We're not going to last 6 months of this.
Well, the only other thing is
look
that
at what he's done in the first 6 weeks.
yeah. If
I mean, watch what he does with Ukraine. I mean, if people don't wake up behind this, they don't see that we've got a traitor in the White House.
and he said he's going to take Panama back too. He said he's
The
going to
man's
take Panama.
delusional. He's crazy. He should be certified, but he's got all these other crazy people right going along with it. Now, how do we stop this? This is going to be history.
It is. It's already
Where were
history.
you doing when Trump destroyed America? What can I do? Talk about it? Talk about it? Reach out to every human that listens?
You can
If you're
speak to your
listening-
congresspersons, but even at that, again, the Democratic Party doesn't have the numbers to vote anything.
Well, we got to count on these Republicans.
But they are
We got to
in
count
the
on
mix.
somebody who come to their sanity. I mean, I
They
look at
confirmed all these people for
Santos.
the FBI,
I look
the
at Santos
CIA.
at these meetings. You can tell him he don't like what he's doing. He knows he's in the devil's den. He knows, but he's mouthing off and saying he's hypocritical to himself. Somebody's got to snap. Somebody's got to see the light. God's got to step into these people's lives and understand they're on the wrong course. They're killing America. I mean, somebody's got to wake up.
I don't think they care.
It's so obvious.
as long as they get
But you
paid.
gotta. But look at he's firing people willy nilly.
Those
he doesn't
people
know
are
what
not
he's
the
doing.
people. He doesn't care about
Those
working
are-
white people. And now they
It's
have
not
to wake
color.
up to the fact of who they really are, because it's not about their skin color. They're not in his class. He doesn't care
That's
about
it.
them. So
I mean, I don't know how they can take it. How can they sit there and watch this happen? They know what's going wrong. I expect you to straighten it out.
he told
There are
the
enough
Secretary of
people.
State.
There are enough sane people on the planet to get this in order. Because God is real. Play item 4. No, we didn't have time.
Watch Marco
sorry.
Rubio. I don't think he's
I
going to
had
last
one
through
roll
the
in that gives you
administration.
energy. It was Sharpton.
He told Marco, "You're going to handle
1 minute?
Panama." Marco can't handle Panama. He's not going to be the driving force behind Panama. He'll be out of the administration. I
You
believe.
watch what happens. Well, again, we've had a good time. I sound confusing because I am confused. I don't know what's going on with Trump. And I'm waiting for everybody to wake up and come to their sanity and bring God into this and bring some love into this man's life. Because he's hating, but he's loving what he's doing, isn't he? He's killing America. Well, it's up to Americans to wake up and understand that we got the wrong man in the White House. Now, how do we get rid of him? And to that, I say, God bless you, and stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist experience. The God in me loves the God in you. And take care. Power to the people. Peace and love.